to November 2021 AEVA monthly hall meeting. There's not many new people here tonight. Everyone's a regular, I can see. So I'll skip through some of the beginning stuff. You good? Okay.
I didn't get the two other cans.
Yeah, I've got all that stuff.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah, just, mate, what do you think I spent 10 hours before the meeting writing a PowerPoint, just so you can come up and tell me you don't have it? All right. I'm going to do my normal chat tonight. We've actually got a fair bit of stuff to discuss. There's been a lot on events-wise and stuff coming up, and I've got a few little bits to do with infrastructure later on. And then Wayne's going to talk to us all about the Aptera 3. Is that the right model? Just Aptera, right? But there's two other previous models, right? And then this is the latest generation. Okay. Then obviously Nathan's going to give us a chat about his Honda E, which is looking good. Does anyone actually? Mitch, do you want to start the night off with the little thing about? Oh, sorry, mate. You're playing a computer game, or? Sorry to put you on the spot, mate. Okay. All right. Well, let's just kick it off then. Recently held events. For some of you would be aware that we've got some stuff happening up in North Queensland with the Cairns and Townsville starting to try and have regular meetings. And we've also got a Toowoomba one happening on the 1st of December. So Graham, I did ask Simone if you were going to say something tonight. Did you want to say anything about this? Yeah, come up. Graham and Simone actually went up, and I think that's Michael Lunn there, isn't it?
No, Michael wasn't at Cairns.
Oh, he wasn't at Cairns?
No, he was stuck. He couldn't get away from work.
Okay, no worries.
Anyway, so this is a bit of a thing we've been trying for a long time to get the northern branches up and running. This is at the Cairns Village Resort. Wednesday a couple of weeks ago, good turn up. Had people with electric cars come. Lady in the pink, oh, that's me. That's the... Okay, the lady in the purple there was very keen. She had no idea what EVs are about. Now she's going to run out and buy one. And I think she'll probably end up being the local secretary or someone there who's going to be part of the admin team there. Yeah, so it was a good day, and some people that hadn't gone for a drive in an EV did. We went on a road trip. We found a wind farm. Here he is. Apparently it was the first one in Queensland. They don't look very big until you're up close to them. They really are big. This is the charge station that we organised up at the Cairns Village Resort, and that's why we use that as the meeting place for AEVA up there. And the picture on this is a really funny story. So the picture on the top left-hand side, that's at Paranella Park, which is sort of like about an hour south of Cairns. And they have EV charging there, and here's a Subaru that's iced in the thing. So we did the right thing. We went inside. We said to the lady behind the counter, there's a car parked, blah, blah, blah. And she said, oh, no one ever comes and charges here. And so we've got a pretty strong suspicion. We left at about 7 o'clock, and the car was still there. So we think it was actually hers. Oops. Anyway. Yeah, so no, we had a really good time up there, and it's a good start for the AEVA branch there. Now, Michael Unn, he runs the Townsville one, did it out of a pub or something, out of his workshop the first time, but I think they're going to find a proper meeting place, something like this. So Mike's going to sort of be the host in North Queensland, because he's sort of not Townsville's a little bit of a drive, 2 hours or something to Cairns, but he's quite happy to do that. A lot of his clients for his EV conversion business live in Cairns too, so it gives him a chance to catch up with those if there's any odd jobs to be done. Yeah, anyway, so that's what we're trying to do. I don't know if anybody's interested, but we're trying to get Toowoomba up and running as well, so that'll be the next job for us. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. I'm going to skip ahead for a second. After the Warwick solar farm event, there was John Murray messaged me about potentially going to a wind farm next. So we're actually looking at the options in that space. There might be one up towards Kingaroy there somewhere. So wherever that is that near Kingaroy? Yeah. So he's going to make some inquiries about maybe doing that one. That's quite a long distance again, but yeah, that's coming up. All right, and it's also very good to see, because sometimes we forget that it's not just, we're the Queensland branch and it's not just Brisbane, so it's good to see other stuff happening around the state as well. Les and I did the AEVA stall at the ACF Transport for a Sustainable Future event, and it was very well attended EV wise, and you can flick through, mate. We had back one sec. We had the Kia Niro. That's the first time I've seen one of those, but David Waterhouse, I think it is, was doing a test on it to write an article about it. But essentially that car, these two cars have actually been out since 2017 overseas, and they're essentially the same car, but that's only really just come to our shores now. But anyway, that was mostly it. A lot of familiar cars that we have at a lot of our meets. So what was next? They had there was actually a lot of scooter and bike focus at this event, and this was at the Brackenridge Tavern in the car park there. And after the event, all of these guys actually went on this, like 30, 40 of them just rode off and did a bit of a scooter cruise. So that was cool to see. And Peter was there with his EC11, sorry. All right, we did a few of us from Brisbane went up to Maroochydore, and we had the second one up there this year. There was 9 EVs there. I don't know why, but we socially distanced our cars in this photo. But if you just go to the next one, apparently, who's in IT here? Because apparently IT pays, because they got IT Geek and IT Help, and they're both driving Model 3s. But met this guy up there, and he's actually doing the installs for the Skylink, which is we had quite a long chat about that. That was quite interesting. So yeah, that was unfortunately the weather was a bit iffy, but it was still good for a nice drive up there. All right, most people, a lot of the people here went to this event, so I can skip through some of the photos. This is a photo with the drone. It was blowing a gale, as many of you would know, and the drone was actually, the footage was quite stable, but when you're flying a drone, at some point it gets a fair distance away that's actually difficult to see, and when you're looking at the screen and it's got the sun on it, it's not that clear to be able to see what you're looking at. And I thought I had spun around and I was looking at the visitor centre that was here. So I was flying back towards the visitor centre, but I wasn't actually. I was flying away towards a lake. So it was a bit awkward. And then because I was flying with the wind that way, but it was all good. There was no dramas, but just such an impressive amount of solar panels. I know a lot of you are big solar advocates, and it was just flick through, mate. Yeah, we had 37 EVs, including Gav's Prius and 2 Outlanders. Just next one. Yep. So very well attended event as well. And the first solar panel shot was here, looking this way, and then you can see. Did I do another shot further out? No, I didn't. But as far as the eye can see, the solar panels, it's pretty crazy. So it's a 64 megawatt 64 megawatt maximum power output, and 200,000 panels. So this is set up in the actual visitor centre, and it shows you some of the solar tracking hardware, and it's got to do with the light hitting on the sun, hitting on there, and it helps angle the panel towards the sun. So we're going to have a chat about it? Or does that mostly cover it? Okay. All right, well...
That side panel also runs the motor, doesn't it?
It powers the battery that powers the motor, I believe. So, yeah, it's very sophisticated. Just on the next one, here's so that first drone shot was here looking this way, and then the car's looking that way, so you can kind of get a scale. I think they said they've got it kind of set up in 232s, haven't they? So, but they had a chat about basically, they have sheep running there as well to keep the grass in between the rows of panels, and that pretty much if they wanted to in the future, they could pretty much just completely remove the farm and it could go back to a farm if necessary, which is, obviously sustainable. So they were cognizant of the fact that they don't know what the future holds, but the panels were all sort of rated for like 20, 25 years. So the reason why it's that size as well is to offset the university's power usage. So obviously a lot of planning and something really interesting to see. And to be honest, of all the events I've actually organised, this is probably the one that the most people have come to me afterwards and said thank you for organising, because it was such an interesting day. So I did video record Don giving the speech, and I did ask for his approval to post that up, and I'm just waiting back for that, and then people can watch that online. So for those that didn't make it, but very good day, and we all went out for lunch after that and had a good time. Future EV events. Okay, this weekend we have the Logan EV Experience, which is essentially a smaller version. Where's Simone? She's there. There's a smaller version of what we did at Cleveland, test rides and cars on display. I've got another bunch of details about that just on the next slide, but okay, we'll go to it now. So it's 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Logan Central Community Centre. And most of us went to the Cleveland thing, so we're pretty familiar of how that's going to be. And that's Luke from Toka, who's also a big part of organising it. The AEVA National AGM is on the 29th, which is a week and a bit away, and like 2 weeks away, and it's on a Monday night, just for those who interested in listening into that on Zoom. So I believe, because I've received an email. Did everyone receive an email about this? They would have sent it out from the website, so pretty much everyone who's a member would have received an email letting you know about that. Not too much more to say about that, but I think they would like to discuss a new constitution. So I guess we'll figure that out when they have it. Gary Young has mentioned to me that the Toowoomba, so they've had 2 preliminary meetings out there in Toowoomba, and they're going to do their first meeting on the 1st of December at the USQ at Toowoomba in the D block at 7:30. That's about that's the framework of the details, but as more solid details come to light, I'll do it. Is anyone interested in going out for that? I'm happy to go out there and... Okay, well, we'll go out there. No worries. Anyone else? No back seat of a Kona? Okay. All right. And then in December, I would like to just, we're not going to have the whole meeting in December. We're just going to catch up probably at the Breakfast Creek Hotel just for some beers and a chat, like a social event rather than doing a hall meeting. That would probably be, that'll be in the middle of December. I'll send out the details for that. And on the 10th of December, we'll do another EV catch up at North Lakes. And in January, it'll be back to Springwood IKEA again. That's it for what's coming up. Okay. So I thought, because there hasn't really been a great deal of EV chargers coming online. I think there might be one at where's Francisco? What was it? What's that? One out the front. It's one out the front. Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, if you want.
EV infrastructure.
Yeah, try and run this. Going on the topic. Hey guys. Oh, cheers. I'm Mitch. You probably seen me kicking around here a fair bit. Long story short, today was here about 6 or 7 hours running the power across for the new EV chargers out the front there. The plan is to have one running at sort of 13 to 15 kilowatts, which should service most of the big heavy users. And then there's 2 double 10 amp power points there, which may get changed to 15. If I can find a truck that has an EV charger full out the back, I'll throw it on the other one, because the other one's just a dummy as a placeholder for the moment. It's been wide, it just needs a unit, so either we organise for one from somebody or get one donated, whatever we can squeeze out, and yeah, that'll be all ready to go. There's the little LED light above it is running 24/7. It chews bugger all power, so that'll just be running at night time as a night light, and then the sensor light there will kick on for 2 sort of spotlights if you show up at night time and you need to charge. There's plenty of power there. There's nearly enough power there to run a tritium 50 kilowatt DC if we get one of those donated, so down the track if we can. But yeah, so for now that should do that. The plan is to have 4 cars charging at once. Yeah, and I'll be running the internet tomorrow underneath the hall so that we can hopefully get a display here to show the input usage from the solar panels and the load coming out of the charger, and we can sort of display what's coming in and what's going out, and we can see over the year how much money we've saved the hall, and that should pretty well zero out any of their usage for the year because it's a 10 kilowatt system. Yeah, so hopefully by the end of this week we'll have that up and running for you guys. It's just got to get switched on and do a thermal load test, which means throw a car on it, put a thermal imaging camera on it and just see what's going on, make sure nothing's getting too hot. Yeah, so that's the plan. But tonight is just a double PowerPoint and the light, and then tomorrow should be the whole shebang. So.
Were we doing anything about people just hogging the charger or not?
There's a control unit there just in the corner. I just threw it in a box, but that is a control computer for the EO Genius system, which is that charging unit there. So we can control that on timing, or we can put a price on it if it starts getting really big usage, and then, you know, like say charge 5 cents a kilowatt hour, throw that back into the club or whatever we end up doing. I think it's just more to turn it on and see how it gets used, because we can log, that'll log all the data, and we can sort of see over
so it's something we can add eventually, but
yeah, I mean the option's there, and the idea is to put a couple of plaques up that say, you know, like the club and what we're about, and then if we can get somebody to donate it, there's a space there to put a plaque as a sign for the business to try and, if we can, help out our corporate members. As I know from being a corporate member, you try and get something as much as you can.
Yeah.
You know, as a kickback if you're throwing money in. So,
good idea.
Yeah, just say thank you for those guys for being our corporate members, because we do appreciate it, and you guys chip in a fair bit. So, yeah, if that's something we can do.
Excellent, thank you, Mitch.
Oh, and the trailer's being done at the moment because I want it for my Christmas lights. So that'll be the next thing. So.
Yeah. You better give him a big clap because he was climbing underneath here today. I think we might maybe get a sign to say, can you please sign in on PlugShare too? And then we can maybe see how frequently it's getting used and get some visual about it as well. So, but what I was going to say about this is the Future Fuels Fund, and I have presented this stuff before. These are the proposed sites, but I thought I'd just do a little bit of fun for the people that are interested and just focus in on this area here. So that's the overall kind of Brisbane view, and this is a zoomed in view. And on the next one, what I thought I would do for just around this location was guess where the charges are going to go. So I'm going to say, I mean, you can see what it says there, but basically they're going right near shopping centres, or they're going at our Ampol. Now, Les? This is an Ampol, and that's an Ampol, and that's in Morningside, and that's in Morningside. And so I don't know how they differentiate those two sites, but anyway, I guess they're just at a different address, but it's a very strange sort of situation. But that's where I could actually kind of gauge where they are. Like, there's a shopping centre there, there's a shopping centre there. This one actually, I think it's near the Broncos, actually. But I think some of them, like this one is across from, well, it seems to be an Anzac Park. So maybe like a public toilet and a nice large park. So some of them aren't always just like shopping centres. So yeah, I couldn't really work out where the one in the city was. That's just in the middle of the city. So, but other than that, yeah. Jan, you're over at West End, aren't you? Does that sound?
That sounds strange, but I don't care, you know. But
I think that's in West End. Like,
could be the West End Ferry.
West End Ferry, okay. Well, when I looked, it was just like the road and a green space and that goes along the river, like a bike path or whatever there. So I figure they might just be putting it. Okay. I couldn't really see any sort of large landmark there or like shops or anything, so.
So are they putting one in each of those spots? Or you're just guessing which one you think they might use?
No, every one of them is going to be a DC fast charger. Every single one, yeah. But if you just go back one step, every one of those is a DC fast charger. And that's just the ones that are coming, not the ones that are already built. So it's a crazy, crazy amount. Yeah.
No excuses, guys. No excuses.
You get two right near you, plus the IKEA ones, so you'll be good.
If only I had a car that fast charge.
Sounds like an IMEV upgrade. The CCS2? Nissan Leaf, yeah. Kippering, well, that's Ampol right on the corner there. So the more, I mean, I only focused on that sort of this area here for tonight. I'll do the other areas in the future meetings, but yeah, I mean, I live at Redcliffe, so I know that was a Caltex and it's gone to an Ampol. That's at North Lakes. There's already the IKEA one there, so I mean, maybe they could have changed that, but like I've said this before, that perhaps I would actually prefer less sites than this much. This seems like a lot. I'd rather less with 2 or 3 heads rather than one site with just one head and an AC. But anyway, look, how can you complain, right? So, and they're finally putting some out on the Bayside, which is good. So, all right, that was just a fun little thing I thought I'd do, and I might do it, seeing as no real chargers getting built for a little bit. But upcoming EV model availability, I got challenged on this last month, and it turns out I was correctly challenged. However, just to save some face, I thought I'd... so Nathan challenged that this is not anywhere in right-hand drive in the world, but you know, I don't just do a quick Google search and slap stuff together on these PowerPoints. So what this was a quote from Motoring New Zealand only in the last month, and that it's basically saying that there's going to be a specialised Australian-only assembly line that hasn't begun yet. Look, mate, look, I don't know what you want from me, all right? But apparently we're seeing this car come to Australia for $35,000 in right-hand drive, all right? So it doesn't say when, so mid-22, according to that. So they've got to get a wriggle on, hey?
Is this the same dolphin?
Yeah, that's it. So the Chinese, 35,000. This is like every time I go to an event, it's all like, when are the cheap Chinese ones coming? So I figure this is it. So I may as well like mention it. So the other cheap Chinese ones aren't that cheap. They're 40 and 50 grand. So I mean, we've already got 40 and 50 grand EVs. So this would be the cheapest. So I just thought it's worth a mention. All right, well that was mostly it from me. We're going to hear from Wayne now, who's going to, you've got an Aptera on order, or ready to, what's the story?
It's a pre-order.
Pre-order. Okay, so we've got all your USB and stuff ready to go. We good, Les? Pressure's on? Oh, okay. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Aptera is not a reality, not like the Honda that we see behind us. It should be coming very soon, and by very soon, they actually pushing the date out a little bit, because my pre-order was supposed to be 2022 for the right-hand drive version, but it's pulled out. But I'm not quite sure whether or not you know anything about an Aptera, so I'll just give you a little bit of a hands up. Like any vehicle that's driving around, we all have a sort of a situation where it suits us now, or may suit us later, or it could be a vehicle that is not focused on being a four-passenger vehicle or five, like a Tesla. The Aptera is actually a two-seater, and it's deliberately designed that way, mainly because the vehicle itself and the people that are behind Aptera, it's an American company being built in San Diego initially. They're really obsessed with efficiency. So the whole concept and the whole design philosophy of the vehicle is efficiency. Right from the design of the vehicle through the transmission and the way they actually manufacture the vehicle itself. So basically it's simplified manufacturing platform that they actually use mylar, Kevlar and hemp body structure. It's very strong. It's pretty well impact resistant. It's basically built on a Formula One capsule, so it's very, very safe. It's very cost effective to build. To actually run the vehicle, it's a lot more efficient than any of the EVs that we're driving around now. It's about 3 to 5 times more efficient than the EVs that we have, and it's basically very safe and reliable to drive. That is in the concept car that they're actually testing at the moment. They're actually forming the body shapes, and they're sort of fabricated manually together. So it's a sort of a manual process. So generally, but they are going to use a few robots, and there's not too many people actually building it. So they're not, and the factory that they're putting together doesn't have large machines. They don't need to precast any steel parts because it's all carbon fibre and composites. Next. Right, okay, you can see there that the actual outline, it's got the batteries themselves sit under the driver, and it has 3 wheels, and so, yeah, go for that.
Motors up front.
I'll talk about that in a sec. So you're just jumping a little bit there, Nathan. Right, okay. The motors themselves are in the wheels. So basically you don't have any transmission, you don't have any gearboxes, you don't have any losses going through. So basically power that you get from the battery goes straight to the wheels, and the motors are actually torque vectored. So it's very stable, and apparently they've been able to do tank turns and all sorts of weird and wonderful driving capabilities with the vehicle that they've got at the moment. The motors themselves are by, I'm saying Elafe, the Americans call it Elaf. It's a Slovakian company. They're an M700 motor, actually derated from 75 kilowatts to 50 because there's so much torque in the motors themselves. Just hold it there. The tyres are just normal standard vehicle tyres. They're non-specialised. You can just go down to Bridgestone and just buy, you know, the 195s by 45 R16s and just chuck whatever you want on there. But, you know, so if you want to drive winter tyres or off-roady type tyres, you can. So without great expense. The concept of the vehicle is that it's built for longevity. They've actually sort of had discussions with the people themselves within the organisation to sort of say, you could almost hand this vehicle down. It's designed for, you know, to last. And if it breaks, you're allowed to actually fix it yourself. You don't have to go back to them. You just order the parts and they'll send it through, and you can fix it. It's got over 3 metres of. It's an actual SEV rather than a BEV. It's a solar electric vehicle. And if you max out on these solar panels, you can get, on a sunny day, over 64 k's a day free energy just by sitting out in the sun. So rather than having to plug it in, you just leave it out there, and it will actually charge while you drive.
Will it have a plug as well?
I'll get there.
Air conditioning? Yes.
Yes. Seatbelts? Yes. Aircon? Yes. Airbags? Yes. So it's actually designed to be like a vehicle. They're actually, it's in the States. They're considering it to be either a motorcycle or an autocycle vehicle. In Australia, we still have to find out what sort of category it lives under. Maybe sort of like a Morgan three-wheeler or something like that. But I would imagine that the registration costs should be quite easy on the pocket. Any parts that are broken, easily replaceable, and they're saying to be cost effective. So if you damage it, you can just order a part and the panels and whatnot. And the solar panels themselves, they're a crystalline panel, and they are flexible. And you see the contoured shapes of the vehicle. The panels themselves are actually form with the contours of the vehicle. And if either one of the panels gets damaged, or a lot of the panels get damaged, they can be easily replaceable. And even if they are damaged, they've done tests that they will still generate electricity, but not as much as if they were in a perfect condition. Next. So basically the whole vehicle is designed to be aerodynamic and lightweight. The minimal kitted out version is around about 800 kilos, and the largest one is the heaviest one is around about 900, so it's well under a tonne. But it has less drag. It's 50% lighter than a normal vehicle of a similar size, just as fast. 175 k's, is that fast? But very safe. They've wondered about people whether or not when you're driving down the road you get passed by a truck, you get that buffeting effect. Apparently there's no effect either from the front or from the sides. You don't actually feel it. You know, you're just slipping through the air. And the whole idea is that it's for efficiency's sake. They've done wind tunnel simulations. The drag coefficient is 0.13. And Tesla's about double that, almost. They're about 0.21 or something. It's actually more efficient than the windscreen wipers exposed on a vehicle, or an F-150 side mirror. So it's pretty impressive. The downwards drag, doing about 100 k's, is around about 11 kilos. So it's actually has a bit of a downward force. So it's stable going through as you're driving along. Okay. You've got two versions of for the motors. So you've got the front-wheel drive, which is just the two front wheels, or you've got the all-wheel drive, which is a three-motor version. The three-wheel drive would go 0 to 100 in about 3.5 seconds. But this one goes 5.5. Next. Okay, so it's not necessarily a small vehicle. It's about the same height as a Tesla Model 3 and the same width with the mirrors on a Model S. So it's pretty wide, but the length is about the same as a Honda Prayer. So overall, it's not a small vehicle, even though it's only a two-seater. But it's pretty impressive stats that it's got. Yeah. So for every version of the Aptera does have some sort of solar panels on it. And they're sort of implying that a lot of the drivers won't necessarily have to, if they're just commuting to and from work, will probably don't have to plug in their vehicle to drive it each day. Because you can get sort of 60 over 60 k's a day just sitting in the sun, that if you're travelling under that, you're laughing basically. You don't even have to plug it into a power cord. You can just park it in the carport and just yeah. Okay, next. So basically, this is really one interesting aspect of it, and hopefully, what I'm hoping that the Aptera, when it comes on out, that it'll a little bit of its philosophy will rub off on other EVs. So people talk about range anxiety, whereas the smallest battery version comes in at 400 k's and the largest at 1600.
So that's the sizes for that?
Sorry?
Kilowatt hour pack size?
Yeah, about 100 kilowatt.
For the top one?
Yeah.
100 kilowatt hour.
Yeah, it starts off at 25, then it's 50 and...
But then we'll have to say to all those Land Cruiser owners that can go 1,000 k's that, you know, we can go 1,600 k's.
Yeah.
So
16.
Where would you put you pick them in the shop?
it's a big pack.
You can tell them that if you suddenly wanted to drive across the desert and you didn't have time to put fuel in,
Yeah, and the thing is, as you're driving, it's actually charging as well. So you're actually gaining when it's sunny while you're driving. So it's, even though the battery may be rated at, you know, you're using sort of 20 to 80%, you're still gaining a little bit as you're driving along. Okay. Okay, this is just a bit of a chart to sort of say, compare the different electric vehicles that are out here at the moment. The Aptera is actually created from the ground up with one purpose in mind: energy efficiency. It slips through the air with about 30% less energy than other electric or hybrid vehicles, and that allows it to have a much longer range than others. So if you look at the BMW i3 in the Tesla, and it's only the smallest range of the Aptera that is beaten by the Tesla Model 3. Even the second, third and fourth eat it for lunch. So, you know, and the batteries are relatively small. They're actually using 21, at the moment, they're designing it for the 2170s. Yep. That's the different solar configurations that you can put on the vehicle. And there's 3 different versions that you can order. Every one of them comes with the solar roof included, so even the smallest one will generate some. And then you can have the hood, and then you have them all combined, and even the rear glass window is covered in solar panels on the wall, and they've got the camera for the rear vision mirror poking through the back. Next. Inside, possibly, I was looking at Nathan's vehicle and it's looking very similar. It's very clean and uncluttered. Climate control is standard on all the vehicles. It's got 3-point safety harness, it's got airbags, and all the control surfaces are digital. So the side mirrors and the rear vision mirrors are digital, just like Nathan's Honda, which I'm very glad to sort of see that it's actually made it through Australia. So that's one tick that we don't have to go through at the moment, because I was getting a little bit concerned there for up until tonight, actually. charging. Here they're showing an actual Tesla port, but they haven't defined it at the moment. They are in talks with various companies, and Tesla is one of them. The good thing about plugging in the Aptera, and it has relatively small batteries, is that it's designed for the American market, which is, they say that you can actually plug it into their 110 volt system. And this is just their domestic 110. It's not their super 240 volt or 220 volt that they have. And you get quite a decent range out of it, even for us. So you can get 100 kilometres out of a 30 amp outlet, just by plugging into 240 for us.
Do you know what the onboard AC charger speed is?
No, it's undefined. I was thinking 3.3, 6.6, or yeah, it's sort of wet finger in the air at the minute. They're going through all of the pre-tests. Unfortunately, they've got the Gamma and the Delta versions to go through, and before production actually runs. But yeah, so by saying that, you can just plug into a normal outlet anywhere. So having a vehicle like this, you can have it as a second vehicle. You can have your own EV plugged into your garage, and this sitting outside, or even by an extension cord, just plugged into a normal outlet. It'll charge quite well overnight. And if you plug it into a supercharger network or whatever, it charges rapidly. Okay, now you'd think that with the shape of it, it is an odd shape, but it has quite a large, what you would call a boot area. It's got 0.7 or cubic metres, or about 25 cubic feet in it. Two people can actually sleep in there comfortably. You can have a pet in there. That's fine. It's got, from some of the latest snapshots that they've done, they've got a tiny little front where you could probably, at the front, where you can actually put cable adapters and that if you want to when you get travelling around. The actual space between the back and the back of the front seats is about 7 foot, so you're not scrunched up. Yep. With the vehicle, you've got all of these. If you want, you can add extras to it when you order it, or post-order, or if you feel as though you can have what they call a safety pilot, an enhanced audio camping kit, pet kit, or an off-road kit. The safety pilot, it just goes to level 2. They don't envisage to go any higher than that, but they will have over-the-air updates, and they will nick and tuck various features in the years coming. At the moment it'll be pretty basic, but they will have intentions to actually refine it as time goes on.
With an off-road kit, we don't have to wait for the Cybertruck, is what you're saying?
Yeah. The enhanced audio, apparently these standard vehicles have 7 speakers. One of the directors is an audiophile, and so with the enhanced audio you get 2 extra speakers plus a subwoofer, and because the internals is super quiet, the sound quality apparently is something sensory. It's just out of this world. The camping kit, they have an awning and a tent that fits over the open rear hatch door. They even offer a pet kit, which allows for a pet barrier behind the seats, and they give a ramp because of the rear of the vehicle is relatively high. They need access to get into the back, and they offer that as well. And the off-road kit, what we call off-road, it's not what they determine as off-road. It's more of a dirt road, normal vehicle can travel on type, where the skid pans and the elevation of the vehicle is set a little bit higher. So you probably get a bit of a range kick out of it, but not much. So basically it's built to be seriously efficient and have fun, enjoy your ride. It's one of those vehicles that won't suit everybody, but suit some. But if you could have it as your number one vehicle, your number two vehicle, or even businesses could use it. Pathology companies can drive around and not having to fuel up and get serviced. Apparently, the servicing is about 240,000. That's if.
What about the price?
The price for the base level is 35 US. Oh no, sorry, Australian. It's 26.9 US. Yeah, so around about 35 at this point. So that's for the 400 with the minimum solar panels and just. Hopefully first quarter next year. Pre-ordered, yeah. Cancelled?
Is it still an order still good?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm number 21,000 or something, or 11. Sorry?
You're the only one in Australia.
No, apparently there's a number of us kicking around, and I'm an ambassador for them, and I'm one of about half a dozen others around the country. Yeah. When I saw this, I thought, I'm retiring soon. I don't want to have to pay all of this fuel. All I want to do is just get in my vehicle and just go wherever I want to go without having to have this range anxiety. Because if I do, I'll just knock on a farmer's door and say, please, can I have some of your power for a few minutes? But yeah.
Does it have mechanical brakes?
Mechanical brakes? It does have brakes, yes.
It does have mechanical brakes?
Yeah. No, but I'm not quite sure how they're incorporated in it, because it doesn't show it too well at the moment. Yeah, so that's a good question. But yeah, so it's got to have mechanical brakes as well. But it's got a number of levels of regenerative braking that you can actually switch in, about 4 levels, I believe. Okay, well, I've got a short video if you want to. It's only lasts about a minute and a half. Yeah, he's talking about flat panels.
With our Never Charge technology, you can drive and drive with just the power from the sun. It keeps your battery pack topped off, and anywhere you want to go, you just go. Aptera really stands out from the crowd because it focuses on the science of efficiency.
A 1,000-mile range vehicle. It was an insane claim, but it's all science.
More aerodynamics, lighter weight, efficient powertrain, gets you further with less energy.
you go. Next.
Do you have any other questions, guys?
Yeah.
Simone's got a question.
Can I tow my caravan?
Yes. As long as it looks like that as well. Teardrop caravan.
As long as it, there is a weight restriction on how much you can tow, but apparently you can tow a little trailer behind it.
Ah, very good.
They will have a tow hitch capability.
Why is it such a fallacy that like EVs can't tow? Like, they're going to ruin the weekend. All right. Do we have any other questions? And otherwise, we'll say thank you to Wayne. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got Nathan to discuss the Honda E now. His pride and joy. What do you like more, the Model 3 or the Honda?
Oh, the Model 3 is definitely the wife's car now.
Oh!
I haven't touched the Model 3 for weeks.
Oh, it's been put on the back burner. There you go. Cheers, mate.
Yeah, the Honda's definitely pride of place at the moment. The Aptera is really exciting there. One of the things, quick calculation, somewhere around 60 watt hours per kilometre they're claiming to get that kind of consumption. So, it's kind of 2 to 3 times less than most vehicles out there. Yeah, I would love to see you do a decent sized trip at 60. That would be good going. I've managed to get the Tesla under 100 for quite a few trips, but not much less than 100. So anyway, today I want to take you a little bit on my Honda E journey, Honda's EV, and I've taken the concept of this sort of talk for you guys today as the train goes past, as a coal train goes past. This car and pretty much everything about it is perfectly imperfect. There's so many perfect bits about it, and there's so many imperfect bits about it, and they kind of offset each other. So we'll go with that. So the car you can see up on the screen at the moment is the Honda's Urban EV, and I was looking today, it was the prototype. They launched this at a motor show in Europe, Frankfurt, I think. And it was launched just over 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, they first came out with this design. And then in under a year, they came out with that design. And so that was a very, very quick turnaround. There's a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences. That was a 2-door suicide door. I think I've got some photos on the next slide, just going back to the original. So, squat, small, some similar shapes and some similar angles, but reasonably different to what turned out in the end. And the suicide door's a bit special. The interior's got a lot of similarities, colour-wise and so on. So they clearly had a good understanding as to what it was that they were going to build when they built the prototype. And as typical prototype cars are, it's kind of proper way out there. It was pretty good. And that's what started my passion for the car. It's like, oh my God, that's so cool. I need one of those in my life. When can I have one? And I know that Jeff's in a very similar spot when he first saw the car. And it made a big buzz because Honda as a brand globally have a really big reputation. I mean, for many, many years, Honda was the #1 selling car in America. Accord and Civic. So it's got a massive, massive name around the world, and obviously, Australia's had a long history with Honda as well. My grandmother actually has the first Honda Civic manual ever to be brought to Australia, and my uncle has it now. And so one day soon we'll get the two cars together. So anyway, that's where the passion started with the Honda EV, Urban EV concept. And so we go on to the next slide. We'll see what happened when they pulled the covers off. A little under a year later, they pulled the covers off what was the production vehicle, and they called this the Honda E prototype. There was very, very few changes between that and what went into production. You can see the wheels and the shape and whatever else is all very, very similar. And that came off. They pulled the front off that one, the cover off that one at the next major motor show. So that then sealed the deal for me, because obviously prototypes are prototypes. I've worked and been involved in a lot of prototypes over the years, different manufacturers that I've worked for, and they're always super fun and exciting, and the stuff that they do, and then when you get really close to them, they're a bit hokey. But when you're talking about a proper car that is production ready, and then you start to see some of the things they've done with it, it was like, okay, this is very cool. And that would have been early 2020. That would have been early to mid 2020 when they pulled the covers off that. And so it wasn't very long before they went into production, and it was very, very few months. And so that was where the passion started to go. So if we go to the next slide. It was certainly from all angles kind of really hit the mark. So I thought to myself, as I've researched, and we all spend too much time on the internet looking at EVs, don't we? I wanted to start to understand the car a little bit more, and I don't actually remember how, but I bumped into John's equivalent in Canberra, a guy called Rob Ogilvie, and he runs an organisation or a company called Ion DNA. And if you click the slide for me, and I ended up basically partnering with Rob to help me to do this. So Rob is a very accomplished EV importer. He's been importing EVs. He's also very accomplished at getting new models onto the system that allow you to then import them. And so Rob put the Honda E onto the system, onto what they call the SEVs system, the Special and Enthusiast Vehicle Scheme. And that's the federal government's way of bringing in a car that isn't brought in by a manufacturer. And he went through that process. And he went through that process for somebody else. There are actually 2 other Honda E's in Australia at the moment. They're in Sydney. And you might have seen them on car sales, because the person wants far too much money for them. And they'll sit there until he drops the price, I suspect. Anyway, Rob helped them get those vehicles in, and then he helped me get mine. And he has another one. He has a white one in Canberra at the moment, ready to find a home for. So I work with Rob, and I think the message that I would give for if you wanted to bring in a vehicle of some description, he's just brought the first ID3 into Australia. We're talking at the moment about E208, Peugeot E208, and also Corsa E, or E-Corsa. Same car but different. Those sorts of vehicles, if you want to bring one in, then Rob's the sort of person that can really help you out doing that, going through those first processes. I did a lot of the work, he did a lot of the work, and together we ended up getting the blue car, which is named Yuki, I'll go into that later, to get into the country. It's not an easy process, but it's not hard. You need to be a bit patient, and you kind of need to be a little bit flexible, I think, is probably the other thing that I would say that my journey has taught me. Has anybody got any questions around that sort of importation journey, or that kind of, finding a car and so on?
Expensive.
Sorry?
Expensive.
Is it expensive? It's not cheap, but it's not, I don't think it's excessive. It starts with find the right car. I found the right car. It was a ex-dealer demo in the UK, and I made a deal with the dealer and bought it. And then, but I'd already done all of the back work to, I didn't just buy one and go, okay, I've got to bring it in. I did all the back work to understand what it was going to take to bring it in, bought it, and then stuck it on a boat, got it here, paid a bunch of taxes, paid a bunch of other bits and pieces, and then ultimately got it imported. And so to get this car into Australia before on-roads is, depending on the one you buy, obviously, that's kind of a major part of what the price will be, how used it is and otherwise, about 60 grand, about 60, early 60s. So yes, it's the same price as a Model 3. I've got a Model 3. I know what they're like. I bought it not because this is not a value proposition. So many people have been arguing with me this week or this last couple of weeks about this car being too expensive and no range and blah, blah, blah. We'll get into that. It's not a value proposition. People don't buy Porsches for a value proposition. People don't buy Ferraris because it's a value proposition, unless they're going to go up in value. It's a car I want. And so probably that's the background on the expensive bit.
How do you go for service? Do you just rock up to Honda and hope for the best?
I haven't actually done that yet. Look, I'm an auto electrician by trade. I haven't been an auto electrician for 20 years, but I'm pretty handy, There's some pretty handy people in this room that I might have to call on one day. You know, I'm looking at a couple of clever people over here, and also, you know, and Rob is reasonably cluey, and there's a real community out there. It's So at this stage, I will, at some stage, go into a Honda dealership and try and plug it up to the scan tool. I previously, been in the auto industry a long time, I previously reached out to somebody at Honda Australia to ask the question, will this thing plug up and will I be able to go to a dealer to talk to it? If you can get the fault code out of the car, the rest of it's fine, right? Your scan tool will talk to that. So my only concern was being able to talk to it. I can fix anything. People around me can fix anything. That's not an issue. But it was a concern for me because it was like, okay, service, parts, they're the two bits. It was like, okay. So they're starting to get quite a few of these, in New Zealand. And so one of the things we've been looking at, we're just getting the microphones working. One of the things we've been looking at is, let's say the windscreen got damaged, rock, whatever. We were either going to have to pull it from Japan, or actually we think we could pull it from New Zealand now. And okay, car would be off the road for a while, blah, 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 whatever. That's just life, I think. And that's the risk you take when you get into something a bit different. But I'm not too fearful of that. I actually don't think anything's ever going to go wrong. I think it's going to be, you know, very, very reliable car. My father-in-law works at a Honda dealership in the UK. And so there's ways and means, right? But they're really good questions that I asked myself in the initial piece and had to go through the process on. Go next slide. So I thought I'd talk about what makes the Honda E perfectly imperfect. Having experienced it for I've done only 1,000 Ks now. And I've about 3 or 4 weeks just kind of getting out there and getting amongst it. So look, it's got a really small boot. There's no doubt about it. And it's got 4 seats only. There's not 5 seat belts, there's 4 seats. But I think what I notice about that is that there's no compromise. It's like there's no trying to squeeze 5 people into a 4-seat car. It's a 4-seat car. I've got a 4-person family, sweet, right? That's absolutely fine. The small boot, I don't need to take the car to go to IKEA and buy a flat pack. I've got a Tesla with a tow bar and a trailer for that. It's like putting the right tool for you don't take a hammer where you need a screwdriver, right? It's the right tool for the job. So as our second car, and we're now an ICE-free family, I sold my Skoda yesterday, gone, that's it, no more ICE, we're 100% EV. Thank you very much. I've got the option to take the right vehicle for the job. And, if we're going for a big trip, take the Tesla. If we're going for a small trip, at the moment, we take the Honda because it's fun and different. So probably, that sort of size, shape, usability, utility, everybody whinges, oh, it's all too small. It's absolutely perfect. The rear-wheel drive, which is, people go, oh, rear-wheel drive, that's amazing. What that does is it gives loads of space in the front end and it means the wheels can really turn. And it's got the smallest turning circle of any production car outside of a London taxi. It is amazing. And I just, if I'm parked somewhere on the side of the road, you just turn the wheel and go the opposite way and there's no concerns whatsoever. So that is an excellent feature that I really like. And the tech, when you get inside it and have a look around it, it's immense. There's just screens from here to Christmas. What the screens do are pretty amazing. And even things like auto steer and radar cruise control and auto crash mitigation braking and side detection, cross reverse detection or whatever they call it. All of that feature, everything is on the car. The autopilot or the auto steer kind of function, it's kind of lane keeping more than anything. It only works from about 70 Ks onwards, but it's probably about 70% as good as autopilot from Tesla. So I think it's very good. For highway work, coming through Southern Cross Drive and you're going around, you've got the little curvy bits, takes care of that absolutely fine. So for me, that's always been the test. If it can do the curves of Southern Cross Drive, that's a pretty good auto steer system. If it can't, it's pretty crap, like a Mercedes-Benz or a BMW. They all can't do it. So that's pretty cool. Go next slide. And so a couple of things here. It's really quick off the mark. It's probably as quick as a Model 3 SR Plus to about 40 or 50 k's an hour, which is excellent, obviously, for off the lights. It'll kind of almost scrabble for grip. You know, it's kind of the rear wheels are starting to slip, sort of thing. So it's really quite pokey. It's got regen and a one pedal drive, so it's got paddles for regen. To be honest, the regen off the paddles is a bit weak. Maybe there's too many miles in a Tesla, but I pretty much always put it into one pedal drive, which is what this little fella is up here on the center console. But what it does do, it's got a very clever braking system, and no one really talks about this. It's not on any reviews or whatever else, but we'll have a look under the bonnet, and if you're into that sort of thing, if you're a mechanic, you sort of understand that the braking, how do they get the braking system? The master cylinder is sideways, there's no vacuum booster, it's not at the firewall, like it's completely different. And the one pedal driving has this beautiful, seamless transition from motor braking to mechanical braking, and I can't even pick it, but I know it's happening because I actually had to clean the brake dust off the wheels this afternoon to have it nice and be clean for you today. So it clearly uses the brakes, and I expect brake wear from that. Like the Tesla, there's no brake wear, it's all motor, right? It doesn't really come on until it's stopped, and then it's just holding the vehicle at the stop. This is definitely using brakes in the low kilometres an hour, but it's really seamless, and I find that quite a nice experience, and it's a lot of regen when you're in that one pedal mode. Go to the next bit. So someone asked the question before, they're basically the same cells as a Model 3 by Panasonic. They are all on the floor, it's a skateboard design. There's about 27 kilowatt hours usable. That's basically good for 200 Ks. When I filled up 100 today, I filled up off my solar to 100%. And it said it would do 212 on the clock based on my consumption over the last nearly 1,000 Ks now. So 200's about right for city driving. The public holiday we had for the show day that we had, I went and took the kids for a big triangle. We went Bayside to Mount Cootha to Bribie Island and home again, and that's the thick end of 200 Ks. I could have made it. It would have used pretty much all the battery, all but a couple of percent. I actually stopped and fast charged it at DFO for a giggle because I wanted to make sure it would. And so, you know, that 200K range is about right. It's doing about 150 watt hours per kilometre on average. So that's not crazy. I expected more. A lot of the bits and pieces said a lot more. But I think the really important thing there is, it's not designed to go to Uluru. You'll never get the bloody Alice Springs in it. Yes, you're right, and I don't want to. And nobody does, but this car I don't have a problem at all. So, I almost went to Maroochydore, but it was my diary wouldn't let me, but I would have driven up to Maroochydore and back, no problems with the car for that. Just hit once more for me, Les. One of the things I think here, so this car here, I bought it out of the UK and brought it here, and the number one reason for that is because it's got CCS2 charging. If you buy a Japanese one of these, you'll get CHAdeMO and Type 1, and ain't nobody want that. So, sorry all the Leaf drivers. So because my home charger is Type 2, all the charging that John talked about earlier will all be CCS2, and some of it won't be CHAdeMO is my expectation as we go forward. And so anyway, that was my reason for choosing a UK-based car. And in the UK and Europe and even in Japan, there's a lot of sort of like, this car's, using a lot of energy. But that lot of energy is because it's trying to heat the cabin because it's cold, and we don't have that here. And so Australia's always been the perfect environment for an EV because you don't have to sit there with all those parasitic losses, heating up coils like a toaster to keep your fingers from freezing off. Whereas that's what happens in the UK. Having lived there for 10 years, it's enough to kill most brown dogs. So it's the perfect car for the perfect environment being here in Australia. So this is a really interesting thing and probably been the most interesting part of the process so far. We're all EV people here. That's what we've been doing for for months and months. I've been coming for 18 months now and speaking in front of you about all sorts of EV stuff and listening to everybody's thoughts and so on. So it's really interesting. One of the things I noticed the most is that I took this car to Cars and Coffee at Cooperoo a couple of weeks back, a weekend back, and people went nuts for it. Just behind the car is like a really old Porsche. Next to us we had a GT40, and my car didn't ever stop having a crowd like you can see in the photo there, and questions and questions and questions, and people going, oh my God, are they bringing this car? No, they're not. I did. We go through that kind of conversation. In the EV crowd, hit the button for me, in the EV crowd it's not the same. It's not the same. And I'm really shocked by that. Because I feel that the EV crowd is like, I'm all about as much battery for as little money as possible. And it's got to have all the utility under the sun. So it needs to look, carry like a Hilux, drive like a Tesla and cost like a IMEV, And it's really interesting that that's been my experience in this last couple of weeks. And I'm really looking forward to Saturday. I'm going to take the car to Logan and again be with the EV crew and be with a mixed audience of EV crew and also, the public, and just see how people react to the vehicle. Yes, it's expensive, but it's niche, it's quirky, it's fun, and, lots of people buy cars like that. And I've just had some abuse, is probably the only word I can use for it online. I've made a Instagram channel for the vehicle and taken photos in nice spots because I think it's very, very photogenic. And so, I'm not a photographer, but I'm learning to be because I want to show the car in some nice spots and nice Australian spots. I did a beautiful picture today on the Bayside with a high tide up, and just that sort of thing about getting the noise of the car out there, and and then sort of reposting that in the EV forum and. He gets the abuse. So I'm really interested about that bit of feedback, because to what Wayne was talking about is bringing new models to the market and bringing out some difference should potentially make the whole tide, a rising tide lifts all boats. And my thought there is that, bringing out something different will float somebody else's boat, and then, they might buy an EV that they were holding out, but they found the one for them, just like Wayne with his Aptera passion. So I'm interested in hearing more about that as well, like people's feedback on that, and I'm interested in experiencing that. I was going to move from here to do what I would call a 5-point walk around, so take you around the car and tell you about some feature that I haven't already talked about here, if you'd like to do that. But if you wanted to, I'm more than happy to take any other questions about sort of the car in general, and I'll either weave them into the conversation or we'll go straight up. Gary.
Going back to when you spoke to Honda Australia, do they have plans to import and retail?
Absolutely not. Yeah, they've been quite clear about that. Absolutely not. Yeah, pretty much. Well, better, probably one step better than Renault in that they didn't bring it in and then take it out again. But yeah, a little like Renault. And countless other brands. I mean, let's talk about Citroën. Let's talk about Peugeot. Let's talk about other manufacturers that, let's talk about Kia. They're bringing one, but there's others. They're still not bringing, not that I'm a FEV fan, but they're still not bringing the Sorento FEV to Australia anytime soon. Like stuff like that. When I spoke to them, I asked them specifically about service, but there's been plenty of media that says that they're not going to bring that car to Australia. I mean, it's more than a compliance car, if you know what that sort of thing means. They built it for Japan. They're selling them at reasonable volume in Japan. They're selling them in reasonable but niche volume, I would call it, in Europe, across all of the European countries, the UK as well. And so I don't know where their supply and demand bit fits. If they weren't selling as many around the world as they could make, then maybe that would be a thing to then bring them to Australia or to New Zealand and other places that have an interest and that the car fits, right-hand drive and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's disappointing. I think for me, one of the two outcomes of this is either a bunch of people buy one because they fall in love with it. Like, if we sold 2 dozen in Australia because people fall in love with it and they import just like I have, tick, I'm happy. If the interest supports Honda to want to bring it in, tick, I'm happy. Like, I don't care. It's all about getting more EVs on the road for me, and that's the number one drive.
Did you have any complications with the digital side mirrors?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people say, oh, what about the mirrors? They're illegal. They are in America, so I don't know what Aptera is doing, but they're not going to get that car on the road as a car, but they might get away with it as a bike. So something like an e-tron GT, so e-tron GT's got side mirrors just like this. In America, it's got big fat wing mirrors, it's got big elephant ears. So the car is type approved in Europe. Australia accepts type approval of Europe completely without any concern or question, basically. If it's got a tick, if it's got the CE mark on it, it's got the Australian stamp of approval. And so that's basically the process. And why shouldn't it be? I mean, like, God, why not? Yeah, absolutely. Way different. Lots of people go, that's the coolest part of the car. It's definitely one of the cool parts of the car, in my opinion. Yes, Jen?
Yeah, I was just wondering what sort of prospects might be of it becoming available in the second-hand Japanese market.
Well, it is, in that I bought this second-hand as well. So I bought the car second-hand. It was a dealer demo. It had about a little over 5,000 Ks on it when I bought it. It's just about to crack 7,000. I might have cracked on this trip just now, 7,000 Ks. It had maybe 5.5. So you could buy a brand new one, but it would cost you a hell of a lot more. I saved a bit of money from the ticket price. I can thank Bojo and his mates for the UK electric vehicle incentive. In fact, probably still, let's put it this way, I've got one of the first EVs in the country to have had a purchase price incentive on it. I didn't think about that before. But I can I paid enough tax when I was in the UK, so I think I'm just getting some of that back. Probably still am in some ways with my pension. So that did help bring it down. And yes, Jen, the second-hand market over time will allow that. So let's go forward. Let's port ourselves forward 2 or 3 years, and that car's now depreciated in its value in the marketplace. There's no reason why you couldn't bring one of those in at 3 years' time, just like I have this year. Same deal, right? Just like bringing in old Leafs. Right now you can bring in a 2015 Leaf from Japan, and same deal, exactly the same process. The cars in Japan are more expensive than the ones in the UK right now, and that's just a function of like the marketplace and used car market prices. But that's just the way it is. Yes?
Will you also be giving online updates?
So I've already done an online update, funnily enough. So it asked me early on when I first got it, it says, do you want to update the, it's actually just the manual. It was the owner's manual. But I put in my Wi-Fi in the house and away it went, and took a short while and off it goes. The file system is actually really interesting, and I probably need to be a bit cleverer, spend some time, or talk to somebody really, really clever like Les, and work out how to actually throw some more files at it, because you can even put in your own backdrops on the wallpaper. I think you can bring apps and games to it, but I don't have connectivity. So the car's got an eSIM in it, so you don't have a physical little card type SIM, but it's got an eSIM. It's got a British eSIM at the moment, it doesn't work. So the car's got an assistant. You say, okay, Honda, and it will come on like a Siri, right, or a Google. But the car's not connected, so it doesn't work at the moment. But if I can get through those, these are, do them when you can kind of things, but things like connectivity, adding extra files to the thing, and also getting that connectivity is something I'm going to work on over time and pioneer that kind of stuff here. And vehicle updates, I think that's something I'll need to explore a little bit more with Honda and see how that goes. But I know the vehicle has the ability to do updates, and I know it now talks to Wi-Fi and talks to the house. So I just don't know what triggers the, hey, I've got a file for you, and then to bring it on. But, whatever. It's all part of the journey. Yes, John?
Look, I know you're still in your honeymoon phase.
Yes.
I was just wondering if there's like a feature that it doesn't have that you wish it did have.
Oh, look, I think the regen's probably not what I would tune it to be.
Stronger regen.
Stronger regen without the braking thing would be maybe so that I could control the brakes, because I think it's probably using a bit too much mechanical brake. That's probably one thing that I would like to see.
You really talk about acceleration.
Yeah, I mean, it's quick. It's quick. 0 to 40 or 50, it's almost as quick as an SR Plus. Over that, you can feel it gets a little bit slow. I've taken it to, triple figures. It runs on the freeway really nicely. If you want to give it a squirt to overtake somebody, again, fine. Cruise is really good. It's not jerky in any way. As I said before, the things like the auto steer is fine. So performance is really good. Braking's really good. Steering's quite good. So it's quite heavy. We talked before about weight with the Aptera. It's basically 1,500 kilos for a little tiny shoebox. And that's...
Holy shit.
Sorry?
Can you see consumption numbers?
Yeah. So it's doing 150 watt hours per kilometre. It's never sort of purported to be very efficient. But when that's it's less than 10% more than my Model 3 over 40,000 Ks. So it's the same. And it's, and it is heavy. There's no doubt about it. It's not quite Model 3 heavy, but it's similar. It's quite a lot smaller car. So I don't think Honda did a very good job of building in the lightness as they would at Porsche. And when we open the bonnet, we'll have a look. They didn't do a very good job of packaging. I think they got lazy. It was like, we've got all this space and we've got this stuff, and just like, and they didn't go, and let's put a frunk in, which would have been great. I've even thought about how could I make a frunk, and we've got time. So that's probably that there. I think there's actually going to be, to that weight point, and maybe also because of the funky steering, because of the super ability to steer, I think it's going to chew through tyres. Some of the UK forums that I'm part of are showing that the guys are working through tyres at a rate of knots. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of work with things like wheel alignment and geometry, and maybe even different tyre models or brands to see where that goes. But this is kind of all part of the experiment when you're playing with something like this. Yes, go. Road noise. I would say it's comparable to a Model 3 or maybe slightly more. There was, Bjorn from Tesla Bjorn, he's done some really good testing, there's no doubt about it. And it actually comes the worst on his road noise test, but I don't know what the deal is there, because I don't think that's the case. At least with my tinnitus ringing too much heavy metal as a young kid, mechanic ears. Any other questions before I make a little work around? I don't know if you want to swing the cameras around. I'll do a quick walk around because we're getting on for time, and I'll have a bit of a walk around on bits and pieces. You can come and walk around as well. I'll take questions along the way. Start at the front. And I might just kick it off. Little lights might do. Stand back and have a little look at the front lights, because they're pretty funky when you turn them on. It's got this little sort of show that it does. And I guess this just goes to the quirk of this car, because it's just a bit different and funky and so on. And so it'll do. They come on yet? Yeah? Yeah, so I just sort of turn it on and get it going. Look, front of the car, it's pretty cute and funky. Some people think it looks like Mr. Bean car or whatever else, but I really like the design. This car's about design. This car's about proportions. I believe it's design first and a car second. I've worked with many cars of that nature in the past. I guess it's just something that I've spent a lot of time doing over my early parts of my career, and so that's one of the reasons why I like it. A lot of feedback for the paint colour. That's probably something that's exceeded my expectations. It's like way better colour than I even expected it to be. We mentioned before about it being CCS2, so obviously the charge port's in the front here, and which is interesting. When it charges, this goes blue and flashes and pulses, and when it doesn't work, it goes red and like all that sort of stuff. I've got a Model 3 and a Gen 2 charger, and the Gen 2 charger doesn't do legacy mode or doesn't do all other vehicles mode. And so I've had to go, and I've just today received my Gen 3 charger, and I'm going to switch them over, and then that charger I've already tested. I went and saw Aaron Blomfield, and he was doing a Tesla Gen 3 charger install about 3 streets away from me. So I took it around and plugged it in and checked that it worked, and it did. So I ordered the Gen 3, and I will get that up on the wall very shortly. Oh, just press the button for us. So charging, and for me that was a major part. We're buying it from the UK because I want CCS2 not to have Chatamo. Talk about actually what we'll do is we'll do the bonnet while we're here. So it is, as I said before, I think they've been a bit lazy when it comes to packaging. It's pretty dinky. There's lots going on in there. For those, those EV guys, the inverters are up the front here. So there's a lot of there's a lot of cabling that's going backwards, and which is interesting. As I said before, the brake master cylinder is just down here. It's the brake reservoir and so on. So that's kind of weird and sideways and whatever. And look, there's I think the opportunity to have put a lot of that further down and have it, one, lower in the body, and two, to maybe have some space at the top. There could have been possibly a frunk or some sort of storage area over near the battery on the other side there.
Did you say this is rear wheel drive?
Correct. Yeah.
And the motor is
at the rear.
Then what's all this?
That's the inverter.
Why isn't the inverter with the motor?
Good question. There's some Japanese people you can go and ask about that.
Balance things up a bit.
Oh yeah, that's it. Weight distribution, right? Weight distributions. No, dumb questions. I mean, so that means that there's the motor voltage is going down wires. I believe it's the inverter because there's a bunch of wires coming out the back of it going backwards. There's basically all three of them, right? So, yeah, the man behind you is the man to ask. The man behind you is the man to ask because he's the one who knows that stuff far better than most. So that's kind of the front end, the dirty bits. I guess coming down the side, you're talking about the mirrors are a major point. Handles being all aerodynamic. You can open the other side there and have a look at the mirrors. Cameras are, a lot of people talking about them having like a rain repelling coating over the mirrors. One of the things I did notice is at night time, it's actually really very good, even in a really dark environment. So driving on a country road at night time, and the lines are behind you, and the lines glow red because of the taillights, and so it picks up that crisply, and I think that's quite impressive. You've obviously got screens from here to Christmas. And right now I've got the games console in there. So one of the little features, again, one of the silly little features, is that it's got a HDMI input, and within that HDMI input, you then have. I've found a little stick style 1000 game controller. So if anybody wants to play Super Mario, fill your boots because it's on there right now. There's other things in there you might have seen, like the aquarium on the screen. Probably one thing that I've been surprised and delighted about is it's got Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and so the built-in maps, it doesn't have Australian maps, obviously, it's got British and European maps, but that doesn't matter because you've got the Apple CarPlay, and that works really very well, and you've got all your apps that work with that. The other one is then you've got, so one of the things that surprised me also is that whilst we don't have maps, and it does know it's in Australia because it shows Australia a map and Brisbane and whatever, what it does do, and I don't quite know how yet, is it knows the speed of the road that I'm driving on. And it comes up, as it would do if it was supposed to, like, if it was, you're in Europe, it comes up with the speed, and it's in kilometres, and it's correct. And so I believe that the mapping system has the road data for the speed in it. I don't think it's cameras because I don't think it's got the camera technology. I think it's to do with the GPS, with the mapping data, and which is pretty cool. And it's like a surprise and delight feature I didn't expect.
So when you go through roadworks, it doesn't pick up the roadworks?
No, it doesn't pick up the roadworks, but like school zones and it's exactly at the right point as well. So you go past the sign and it goes from 80 to 90, like on Southern Cross on the way here, 90. So that was pretty cool. In the back of the car, look, it's big enough for what we need. I've got 2 kids, they're 5 and 9. I've took the kids' booster out to come here tonight, so it's nice and clean for you. But you know, that fits in just fine. I take it to school every morning. You know, so for me, the utility that it provides is correct and right. I don't need any more than that. If we're coming around to the back of the car, it is a bijou boot. It is a soupçon of a boot, and so it comes with both a granny charger and that's a Type 2 to Type 2, which is quite useful. Granny charger's at home at the moment. I've had that changed to Australian plug. Look, underneath this back little thingo, again, is probably an opportunity missed. There's a bit of space, and I've decided to put the manual in the back. But you can see the hump that's just underneath that, the carpeted hump that's just underneath. That's where the motor lies. So that's where the rear motor is. It's got a goo kit for the tyre. If you ever had a tyre that you then wanted to try and do on the side.
Ask you where the spare wheel was.
Oh yeah, we're going to carry a spare wheel around the city.
Yes.
So that's a goo kit.
They're very useful things.
I have never changed a spare wheel, and I'm going to touch wood right now. Yeah. It's about every 8 years on average people need a spare tyre, so I'm going to go with the fact that I don't need to carry 40 kilos around all the time, as Tesla do and many others. So yeah, look, it's enough. Like school kids' bags go in there okay. I've had scooters in the back there to go for a scoot down the paths.
Umbrella?
The umbrella's mine, and I've added that because I think that's probably a bit useful.
It looks like that's what it's.
It looks like it's where it's supposed to be, right? You know, that's where.
I actually thought that you had 2 hooks to hold it.
Well, you know, that's what they do in an Aston Martin. We put that in many years ago, and I could probably do the same here. But I think that just probably shows how good the design is, and you can just be at one with the design. The rear taillights look really cool. Does someone want to put the taillights on? Just flick the little thingo on the left-hand side. Just a second, Graham. I'm just excuse me, Graham. Just going to turn this on. There you go. So the rear taillights are pretty nice again. Look, this is part of the design. The little equals sign in here becomes the brake lights. Simone, put your foot on the brake. Simone, put your foot on the brake.
Brakes.
There you go. So you got the little sort of equals sign, and again, you know, all part of that kind of, and the blinkers. Let's. Do you want to hit the hazards? Indicators. There we go. So I mean, look, people probably don't often buy a car. They think they don't buy a car because of the way the indicators and the taillights work. But I can tell you, most people buy cars emotionally, and design, colour, shape, little funky things like the way the door handles work are reasons why people do buy cars, and certainly they've got me on this one.